Hello and welcome to FPL Malbo. My name is Andy and I've got my team selection video ahead of Game Week 12 for you today. We'll also have a little look at my watch list, the players that I'm targeting for the next couple of game weeks. If you're enjoying these videos, then please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Always appreciate it when you guys do that. Without further ado, let's take a look at how I got on in Game Week 11. So it was Green Arrow. With a mighty 31 points, which was actually under the average amount of points. I think it shows how many of the big hitters, the highly owned players, just didn't perform in this game week. It was a really, really weird one. I won't spend too long going through my team. I think I don't think there's much to regain from that. In defence, Trippier got 9 points, and then it was 0 points from everybody else. Pedro Porro, I thought, was unlucky. He created a couple of decent chances in a absolutely mad Tottenham-Chelsea game. I watched that game, and it's easily the best game I've seen this season. Tottenham, at 2-1 down, still could have got something out of that game, even with 9 men. Basuma, I think he was, had a chance at the back post from a Pedro Porro cross. Dyer had a goal ruled out. Again, it was a Porro ball into the box, although I think it was flicked on, so it wouldn't have counted as an assist. But yeah, he was pretty immense in that game, considering. So yeah, 0 points is unfortunate, but if you get 2 defenders sent off, then can't really expect too much more. And then Flecken and Cash both got subbed off with injuries, which is a concern, but I'll get onto that a bit later. My midfield, Gordon, controversial goal, but still a goal, and Matoma. So my 2 cheap midfielders did well for me. Salah and Saka. Saka was a tough fixture. Salah was a big disappointment for nothing in that one. And Maddison also went off with an injury. Not ideal. And then City win 6-1, and Haaland and Alvarez get 0 returns between them. Haaland goes off at half-time with an injury as my captain. So that's 4 injuries across the game week. 2 players on the bench, one of whom's injured and one of whom is non-playing. Turner got dropped for Nottingham Forest, so goalkeeping options are looking a real worry going forward. So yeah, absolutely got away with that week. It was absolutely terrible. And to get 31 points, and like I say, I think it was about 8k green arrow, a tiny green arrow. Yeah, got away with it. Could have been considerably worse. 31 points all out, 263k in the world. Not bad. I'm okay with the position that I'm in, and I've got 2 transfers as I rolled to transfer last week. So let's have a look at my watch list and what I'm looking at doing with those transfers. So let's start with the goalkeepers, because I definitely have a goalkeeping issue within my team. Now, Flecken's currently red flagged. Is orange flagged. I think he's likely to be okay. The problem is, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, Turner and Flecken don't rotate well. Neither of them have very good fixtures. I'm looking at wildcard in 19, so I'm going to have to hold them for another 8 game weeks. I really don't like making goalkeeper transfers. I think it's a bit of a waste of a transfer because the amount of points that you get from them compared to other players is just so low. Plus, it tends to be slightly erratic, the points that you get. Clean sheets you can kind of predict a little bit more, but things like save points and bonus points you can't really. But yeah, if Turner's not going to be an option going forward, I'm going to have to play Flecken every week, even if he's fully fit. I'm not really happy with that. Brentford's fixtures over the next 3 or 4 are really tough. It's the reason that I sold him in Buemo, who's now returned 3 games weeks in a row. So that's not looking the greatest decision, but the fixtures are tough. So these are the 2 guys that I'm eyeing up. Areola, I think, was in everyone's wild card who kind of wild carded in the last 2 or 3 game weeks, and understandably so. The problem is he's now risen up in price to 4.3 million, so he's no longer quite the bargain that he was. You're only talking 0.2, 0.3 million than he previously was, but it's just he was, 500,000 cheaper than the rest of the goalkeepers, whereas now there isn't that much in it. That said, West Ham still have probably the best fixtures in the league from a defensive point of view over the next few game weeks. The reason I'm not totally sold on Areola is that the West Ham defence has looked a bit up and down recently. Um, I think they performed better at the start of the season with tougher fixtures than they seem to have done recently when the fixtures have got a little easier. Against Everton and against Brentford, I thought they were pretty poor. It's 3 losses in a row now for West Ham as well. Areola's still a good option. Like those fixtures, Nottingham Forest at home, Burnley away, Crystal Palace at home. There is the potential for 3 clean sheets there. David Moyes is a naturally cautious manager. So that kind of suits a goalkeeper from that sort of team. But he's very much an option. I don't think it's quite the no-brainer that it would have been if you were bringing in a goalkeeper, say in game week 8, where Areola was considerably cheaper. The West Ham defence was looking a little better. Yeah, so I think I am leaning towards my other favoured option at the moment, which is Sam Johnstone from Crystal Palace. I just said West Ham have the best defensive fixtures in the league. Crystal Palace pushed them pretty close, to be honest. I think they've got West Ham in game week 14, and it's really the only tough fixture in the next 5 game weeks. Everton are improved, admittedly, and Luton are better at home than they are away. But over the next 5, could I see him getting 2, 3 clean sheets? It's certainly a possibility. Plus, he's been pretty good for bonus points so far this season and save points. Crystal Palace have the second most clean sheets in the league. He's the top scoring goalkeeper, equal with Alisson at the moment, for a whole £1 million less than Alisson is. I think he looks a really good option going forward. I think the likelihood is that I will make a goalkeeper transfer this week, however much I dislike doing them, because I need a goalkeeper for the next sort of 8 game weeks. And I think on paper, Sam Johnstone is worth the 0.3 million more than Areola, even though Areola is still a very decent option. So on to the defenders, and I'm going to ignore the big picture of Harry Maguire that I've got up there for a second. I spoke about defenders quite a bit last week, so I'm not going to spend as long going through all of those players again. Tsimikas is still a really good option. He was dropped this game week. I still think he is probably first choice whilst Robertson's out. It doesn't mean he's going to start every week, but I think he's 4.4 million, is he? Still good price from a really good Liverpool team and really good fixtures. However, they have Brentford and Man City in the next 2. I don't think this is the game week to bring him in. I think it's probably worth waiting a couple of weeks, and then I can look at getting Tsimikas in for the next sort of half a dozen game weeks. I think he'll probably start 5 of those 6. And if he doesn't start against, City or Brentford, and Joe Gomez is looking first choice, which I do doubt, I have to say. But if he is, then I can reconsider that. I spoke about the Crystal Palace defenders quite a lot last week because I prefer Sam Johnstone, because I think he's more likely to get save and bonus points than any of the defenders are likely to get attacking returns, despite the fact that Mitchell actually did this week. Johnson is my preferred option. I don't think their defence is good enough that it's worth considering the double up, really. Arsenal defenders are really good, but they are expensive if you want to go for the most nailed option, which is Saliba or White. You can take a punt on Zinchenko or Gabriel and save yourself a little bit of money there, but I think you're more likely to get a benching. So my favourite option is Harry Maguire, which if somebody had asked me start of the season, what are the chances of you looking at bringing Harry Maguire in game week 11, I would have said probably 0. But I think at this point, you just have to say he is first choice in that United defence. Martinez is going to be out until after Christmas, which is around when I am wildcarded anyway, so I'm only looking up until then. Varane, I don't really know what he's going on with at the moment. He's obviously had injury problems, but he seems to have been back fit and just not being picked for the last few games. And even if Varane was, I think Harry Maguire is in front of Lindelof and Johnny Evans in that defence anyway. So I think it will be Maguire and Varane as the two centre backs, even if Varane was back in favour. So that covers the nail part. I'll try and justify why I think he's actually a good pick. And mainly it's because of price. He's 4.2 million. United have some really good fixtures. You can see that Newcastle fixture there in Gameweek 14, but either side of that, they've got potential for clean sheets, and their defence has looked shaky this season, but it hasn't looked absolutely dreadful. It's their attack, I think, that has looked really labouring. I think for 4.2 million, you can get a defender that you can rotate in and out of your team. I think he's likely to start a lot over the next sort of 6, 8 game weeks, potentially every game. He has genuine attacking threat as well. He always has throughout his career. Like, he's great in the air. So he does score the odd goal from corner, from free kicks. He also gets knockdowns for assists. Yeah, I like him. I like him as an option. I wouldn't want to play him every week, but I think at his price, you can easily justify not doing that. And it takes a little bit of money out of my team, whoever I changed him for, as long as it's not Beta. All of my defenders are more expensive. So it gives me a little money to invest. And I do have ideas where I would invest that money. If I brought him in for Botman this week, who hasn't played and there's no sort of return inside for him, then it gives me another playing option, which covers some of my injured players who may be back or may not be back. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about Harry Maguire, and honestly, may well come into my team this week. So I'm going to skip over the midfield because I don't actually have any midfielders on my watch list, and I'll explain why when I go through my team selection. So let's go straight on to the strikers. I currently have Julian Alvarez, who has blanked in his last 3. Man City's fixtures are now quite tough. I have a little bit of money invested in Alvarez, but I don't think there's enough that is justifiably keeping him. I think he has dropped off a little bit from the start of the season. I think there's better options. I think Ollie Watkins is still a very good option, but that really great run of fixtures that Villa had are kind of coming towards an end now. He's obviously blanked in the last 2 as well. I think that's more Ollie Watkins regressing back to his norm. I think he's an exceptional footballer and he gives so much for the team, but he does tend to underperform his XG a little bit, and he hasn't done that this season. So he's either massively improved under Emery, or he's had a little purple patch which might be coming to the end. I think it's probably somewhere between the two. I think Emery has genuinely improved him, but I think as an FPL option, I don't think he's essential, and he's a lot more expensive than the 2 players that I'm eyeing up. Now, first of all, there's Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah, I'd be very tempted to bring in if I didn't have much I wanted to do with my team. I spoke about being happy with my midfield. If I was happy with my defence, I didn't have any goalkeeper issues, then Nketiah, I think, as a short-term punt would be fantastic. He's much better at home. Throughout his Arsenal career, he's been way better at home than he has been away. Almost all of his goals have come at home. And his next 2 home matches are Burnley and Wolves. They look like fantastic options. There's always this feeling that he's at risk of losing his place, but whenever Jesus has been out, Nketiah has started this season. He's started almost every game this season. I think you just have to get to a point where you say that Nketiah is undisputably first choice when Jesus isn't available, and he's not going to play Trossard down the middle or Havertz down the middle. The problem is that I think there's a chance that Jesus might be back after the international break, and we have seen them both play together, but that was when Martinelli was out. Martinelli and Saka, I don't think either of them are getting dropped from the first choice Arsenal team. So Nketiah, I think, looks brilliant. I don't think you've missed the boat on him. I think you could easily bring him in for the next 3 and hope that Jesus isn't back, but you need to have an idea of how you're going to take him back out of your team again, because as soon as Jesus is back, think he's too big of a rotation risk even at that price, and he's probably too expensive that you can have him as your third striker that you just rotate in occasionally. So yeah, great option, well worth bringing in still this week, I think, but doesn't suit my team because I don't think I've got too many other issues that I think I can bring somebody in who I'm going to want to take out again in a couple of weeks. The one that I'm really eyeing up, and I think it's borderline as controversial as the Maguire one, is Darwin Núñez. I saw his miss at the weekend. He's a chaotic footballer. I think his last goal in Europe sums him up really. It was a lovely ball through. I think it was from Trent. A terrible touch from Darwin when he would have been through on goal meant that he ended up really wide, and he just cut in and scored a 30-yard absolute screamer. He does the brilliant stuff brilliantly. He gets loads of chances because his movement is so good. Physically, he's great. He's so quick and he's strong. At times, he appears like an absolutely terrible finisher. I sort of want a bit of that chaos in my team. I think he's a high upside player. He's somebody who can potentially get hat tricks for you. I think he'll be incredibly frustrating to own, but I think you've got that Brentford fixture, which is all right, admittedly, but not the easiest, and then Man City away, which is tough. Owning Alvarez as well. I don't think that Chelsea away fixture is that much tougher than Brentford at home, and I don't think that the Man City Liverpool fixture, I don't have a preference, the attacking player from which team that I own really. So I think game week 14 could really be time for Darwin to come into my team. I will have Alvarez for another couple of weeks. Didn't start the Champions League game against Young Boys for City, so I'm sure that he will start that Chelsea match. Pretty sure he'll start the Liverpool one as well. But yeah, I like the look of Darwin. He's a punt, but I think one worth taking because fixture's really good, and I think he has now nailed down that place in the starting 11 for Liverpool. So this is how the team is currently shaping up for game week 12. In goal, I've got Turner. I was planning on starting Turner over Flecken anyway for that West Ham away game. Turner's benching for Nottingham Forest, I think, will force me into a goalkeeper change. I think you will see Sam Johnstone being in goal for me this week. I just need to decide whether I want to try and keep two playing goalkeeping options and take Turner out, or whether I want to sell Flecken and just play Sam Johnstone every single week until I wildcard. Onto the defence, I've got Cash, who's currently flagged. He's got Fulham at home and will definitely be playing if I think he's going to be fit. Pedro Porro has Wolves away. Trippier has Bournemouth away. I'm happy with that defence. If I do bring in Harry Maguire, I would like it to be for Botman. If I hear Cash is going to be out for a long period of time, then it will probably be Cash that goes, so that I instantly take a bit of Cash out of my team. I don't know who I would pick. I would have a benching headache if I brought in Harry Maguire for Botman. I think there's a chance that I would bench Pedro Porro. The Tottenham defense is just going to have to be so makeshift next week. Van de Ven looked like he was going to be out for a while. Obviously, Romero will now miss the next three. Udogie will be suspended for that Wolves game as well. So 3 of the first choice back 4 are missing. I think Wolves will probably score in that game, which means that I'm relying on attacking returns, which is a possibility. He looks so attacking, Pedro Porro, but he hasn't had any for a few game weeks. So he'd probably be the one that I will bench simply because I don't fancy clean sheet in that fixture. Now, when I said I had nobody on my watch list in midfield, obviously there's plenty of good options, but I'm just really happy with my midfield at the moment. So I've got Mitoma against Sheffield United. I brought him in because of Brighton's great run of fixtures. Salah will probably be my captain against Brentford. And Saka against Burnley at home. That's three good fixtures for me. The Brentford one for Liverpool is probably the toughest. But essentially, I think that they are three teams who have a good fixture run, sort of 3 or 4 really good fixtures over the next 5. And I think that's the 3 best attacking players from each team. Mitoma from Brighton, Salah from Liverpool, Saka from Arsenal. So if I was wildcarding, I'd probably still have all 3 into my team. Now, Gordon has Bournemouth away. I think he's the best enabler at the moment. He's still cheap. I bought him in a few weeks ago, so he was even cheaper. He's risen in price a couple of times. He's looking absolutely nailed, mainly because Newcastle have just got terrible injury problems at the moment. Callum Wilson can't play 2 games in a week, and Gordon is the next in line, I think, to play down the middle. So he's playing up front sometimes as well. He came on at half-time in the Champions League in the Dortmund game, so I'm 100% sure he will start in that Bournemouth fixture. If Pedro Neto was fit, then I think there's an argument that he could be the best enabler, but he's not. So Gordon is the one for me. He's not going anywhere. And the only one who I think is up for grabs, really, is James Maddison. But the midfielder that I would most like for Maddison is Son, and he's considerably cheaper. Maddison is considerably cheaper. I have a lot of money wrapped up in Maddison as well, which isn't necessarily a problem. Like, I bought him in start the season for 7.5 million. I think he's about 8.2 now. I don't mind selling somebody that you've got money wrapped up in, but there's no point doing it if you're looking at bringing them back in in a few game weeks, because you're just costing yourself, 0.3, 0.4 million for the sake of taking them out for a couple of tough fixtures. I haven't got an easy way to get to Son. There's no other midfielders that I'm particularly eyeing up in front of Maddison. He's an easy haul for me, and I think he'll probably be fit. I think Postecoglou kind of alluded to the fact that Maddison obviously had a bit of a knock, was a slight concern. Postecoglou had to make changes. He had Van Ven already down injured, his hamstring had completely gone. And obviously was completely reshaping his team after the sending off. So he just decided it wasn't worth sacrificing it. He couldn't let Maddison play on for 10 minutes to see whether he got over the knock, because he couldn't use another transfer. You can only another substitution. You can only make 3 different times. You can make a substitution, and he didn't want to waste another one on Maddison. So I think it was a game scenario. It wasn't necessarily that Maddison was a problem. I'll be watching to see whether there's reports of him training this week. My gut tells me he'll probably start that Wolves game. And strikers, I sort of mentioned that, like, Darwin is the one I want in front of Alvarez. I think Alvarez is not looking as good as an option as he did a few weeks ago, but he's still playing in that team. The Chelsea fixture I don't mind at all. I think City will win that game. I think that Chelsea's defence is okay, but I think City will have too much for them. And can Alvarez pop up with a goal and assist? Certainly can. He's still on a lot of set pieces. So, yeah, if I had no other issues in my defence or keeper, then I'd potentially get an Nketiah for a couple of game weeks, but it's not worth it to me. Alvarez will be staying. And alongside him, Erling Haaland, incredibly disappointed last week to get no returns off the back of a 6-1 win, but he got 2 goals in the Champions League. I was at that match. The second goal was absolutely superb. He doesn't score many from outside the box. Just came from nowhere. Just absolutely superb finish. I don't think he's dropped off really at all from last season, even though his returns are maybe down just a smidge. I'm not as confident enough that I'm going to captain him over Salah. I think that is pretty much set in stone for me that I'm going to go with the home fixture. But I'm expecting a return from Haaland in that game. So that's how the team is shaping up. It would leave me with Bayer on the bench, obviously against Arsenal, but hopefully if I do bring in Maguire, I will have another playing defender on the bench. It also means if one of Maddison or Cash misses out, they will come into the team and I wouldn't need Bayer to play. So yeah, overall, looking at using my 2 transfers, that's probably how I'm going to use them. And I think the team looks in decent shape going into game week 12. So that's it for my team selection video ahead of game week 12. Let me know in the comments what you think of my potential changes. Like I say, it's probably going to be Johnstone and Maguire coming in. I just need to 100% decide on who is going to be leaving. And obviously injuries will affect who that is likely to be. If you're enjoying these videos, then please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. And I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video.